Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Industry Matters podcast presented by VGM. Each episode, we feature conversations with leaders, innovators, advocates, and everyday people who are working to strengthen patient care, support business operations, and shape a sustainable future for the DME-POS, CRT, home access, and broader home healthcare space. At VGM, we believe that knowledge moves the industry forward. Our goal is to give you real insights you can use, whether that's navigating industry challenges, improving patient care, or strengthening your business.
Welcome to Industry Matters, O&P edition. I'm Jeff Kessler, OPGA, Director of Orthotics and Prosthetics at the VGM Group. And we are joined today by Russ Molina. They are Legacy Prosthetics and Orthotics out in California. And I'm going to let him do his own intro because there's some really cool stories that he was telling us. And I want you to hear it from him firsthand. Hey, Russ, thanks for being here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate the time and I look forward to today. Yeah, I'll just jump into it. So I'm a third generation certified prosthetist. My grandfather got us into this field, way back when. Lost his leg at the Battle of Iwo Jima, came back. The story goes, unfortunately I never got to meet him, but he passed away a couple years before I was born. But the story goes he came back and no one could make him a good leg. He started making his own in the facility there. I believe it was in Inglewood back then. And then eventually it was a trade back then, so went through the trade and got his certifications at the time, and he's passed that down for now 3 generations. My father was involved before me. His brother, Roger Molina, my dad's Russell as well, is involved. He's still actively in the field. My dad's since retired. And then my cousin, Ryan Molina, he's based out of Pasadena. He's involved. So I like to say a bunch of us leg makers out there. Yeah, so for 3 generations we've been doing this and take great pride in what we do. Still show up to work every day and does not feel like a job. It feels like I get to go do something that was passed down and do something that I love. So definitely a privilege in that fact. But yeah, so 3 generations later, we're here in Coachella Valley, La Quinta, California. I've got an office down in El Centro, Palm Springs, as well as Orange County. My business partners and I, we opened Orange County, I believe in 2013. Took over my dad in about 2018. Formally took it over in 21 and then kind of ran with it ever since. So it's been a good run, and it's just feels like every year we're just getting started too. So it's been a good run we're on, and like I said, it's been a definitely rewarding field.
You said that was your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandfather, Henry Molina. So I'm actually born on his birthday randomly, and have his name as my middle name. So I'm Russell Henry Molina.
Thanks to your grandfather for his service.
Right? Absolutely.
You hear that pretty often in our field, like generational O&P companies, and he's kind of, it seems like if you want something done right, do it yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Can't figure this out, I'll just do it.
I got it. That was back when they were carving it out of balsa wood, so they were doing it from the reverse. They were carving it out instead of shaving it down, so I couldn't even think about doing that right now. My dad tried to show me years ago, and I was like, that's not how we're doing it, so that's not what I'm going to focus on.
Now we're 3D printing and using AI to write all of our clinical notes. Back then, you only needed a prescription.
I did something even that.
Yeah, now it's pretty daunting what we have in front of us. I guess segue into what we want to talk about today, which is all of the pressures that come with running a practice. The big things that people talk about in our field are reimbursement pressures, margins, cost of goods. There's a lot of things stacked up against them. Compliance, continued licensure. It just seems like everything continues to mount. And what I found are the companies that are doing well and being successful. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that at some point, just how you've managed to find success. But they're finding ways to be more efficient. They're finding tools. They're finding partners. They're figuring out a way. So it's not impossible. So you hear all these pressures, but there are companies out there that are finding a way to deliver high value patient care while also having successful businesses, because those two go hand in hand, right? And it's finding the right tools to do that. And so there's a myriad of options out there. You guys have recently You guys have recently adopted a new tool with Nymbl systems back. I think
Yeah.
you mentioned that it's been about a year. But what drove that decision out of all the concerns that are going on in the industry? The big one you hear is people don't, it's never good to change. Nobody
Right.
wants to go through a change. What kind of initiated this? Why did you want to start exploring something that you knew was going to be a big undertaking? Why go through it?
Yeah, I think to speak back to your point just before, with all the consistent changes in the industry and the dauntingness of it all, I think a lot of this started back in 2012 for us. It's when the evolution of like solid documentation came into play. My dad, in 1 year's time, I believe it was in 2012, with rack audits, we didn't have accurate documentation, and he got pretty hosed. You're talking in excess of probably three to $400,000 in takebacks.
Wow.
And so to manage through that wave and to really fight through that, it set something off in not only myself. Again, a lot of the people in my clinic, they've been with us for 20 plus years. So it set it off in them. Like, we had to make a change in 2012, and we had to make sure we never went back there. And so that kind of set it all up for us. We had a big year of huge losses, and we waded water until probably about 2015. And that's when we really like solidly implemented OPI at that time. And it worked great. There was no more paper charts. There was no more confusion of where the information is, where's the documentation is. And so we had that software really since 2012 when the problem happened. Full implementation took us probably 3 years, and it was all of our doing, right? Like, we were so used to a certain way that the gal up front, she's been with us for 36 years. And so it's like getting her to buy in, getting her to change. It took years for us to fully implement that software. And once we did, we ran with it for a while. And then over the years, you're talking now well into 2025 at this point when we made a switch. What necessitated that change? It was the way in which we wanted to deliver care. I felt like we couldn't. I felt like something we needed to get to another level where we saw like a future with the company, and that's what we saw in Nymbl. What we saw a company that was technology driven. We saw something that looked up to date. Granted, I'm 39. Grew up in the technology era, grew up with the MySpace, Facebook, turned into Instagram, turned into TikTok. So we've grown through that. And it's like, we see how rapid technology can innovate and rapidly move forward. And we wanted to align ourselves with who we felt we are. And that's where we felt like Nymbl was at the time. I know we mentioned before the call, but I worked really hard at changing the way in which we deliver care. I felt that we can really make a change from a prosthetist level on being able to deliver more rehabilitative care rather than just fit it and quit it type of thing, pass it off to therapy. No, I thought there should be a collaborative approach, and I wanted to build a facility that was open, was expansive. People could see what was going on, could see rehabilitation taking place. And that's what we did. And after we did that, we're like, okay, what can we do next to elevate our level of care? We found Nymbl a year ago, and we really felt like we can latch on to something. We know that we've met the CEO, we've met the people involved with our journey getting us implemented, and it felt like it was something that we can buy into, that we felt like was going to advance with us. So that's how we got to where we are today. I wouldn't change a thing. I feel like we're in a good spot, and I feel going forward, there's still so much room for innovation, not only on their side, but our side as well. And with the advancements of technology, with AI, there's things that are still available to us that are on the horizon that we're looking forward to.
From balsa wood carving legs to a modern feeling company to reflect a modern era, I do think that our industry does have this old school feeling. I'm an amputee myself, and I've gone through plaster, casting, and things have changed the way that things get cast and scanned, and I've felt that. And I think the modern patient expects modern companies, and when they walk into an O&P shop, sometimes it can feel a little dated, and it sounds like you guys wanted to buck that trend, and you needed a partner that was going to come alongside you and have that same vision for a modern feel that you were after.
And I also too, it's like, just to segue on that real quick, there is this dividing line. I remember the Super Bowl happened. It was a Toyota commercial. There was a girl snowboarding down to a Toyota Tacoma or something. And it was the first time that us as an industry said, oh my gosh, everybody's like, there's a prosthetic. I was excited, but it brought it to the masses, and it allowed, and again, with our open concept today, it's like, people want to see what's going on, right? It's no longer behind closed doors. We don't have to hide. It's like, and that's where we're at today. And again, we still have people who want it old school, and we have the people who are just getting into this, who are excited by the technology. So it is important to know both. It is important to know how to hand cast and use plaster. I casted a foot orthotic the other day, and because someone didn't want to scan, and then I tried to do an impression, and they're like, oh no, we're going to cast. I'm like, okay, let's cast. And so again, it's important to know, and that's what school does so well. I remember back when I was in school, I know having residents here, it does lay the foundation out pretty well. And then while they're here, their eyes are open to this new way of doing things, which is great. Best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, honor your roots and your tradition, and respect that you got to where you are today, not because of their lacking, but because of their abilities. And
100%.
There's wisdom in all of that, and there's a reason why. And so it's marrying that. I love that. And then you were kind of talking, you have open, like, people can just kind of see into your...
Yeah, so when you walk into our facility, you come in and it is full glass. It's open, and basically you walk into, call it a fishbowl, and around you, you see everything going on. We got a gym with weights, treadmills, rowing machines, tables, all that stuff to one side. To the left side, you have a huge walking track, stairs, ramps, parallel bars. But the idea is when people come in, and maybe it's your first time, maybe you're coming in on a wheelchair, and being able to see people achieve their potential at our facility, being able to go upstairs, go down ramps, being able to work out. There's a competitive nature in all of us, right? And it's like, I see him doing it, I can do that too. And there's so much of that. And it's my biggest passion piece that I've ever, and I didn't know it. I knew I always wanted to do something, but now seeing it after the fact, seeing the outcomes, seeing people get back to full living, it's so awesome. And again, it's the feedback from everybody, from our referral sources, from a physical therapist. We allow them to bring their physical therapist in our office. They can do treatments here. Maybe their office doesn't have our capabilities. Bring their therapist in. Have the session here where you can have all that. I mentioned it's a walking track by Solo Step. I'll send you the video later, but basically you can harness someone up, and by being able to harness someone up, it takes away the fear. So all of a sudden, when someone is at that cusp of a K2, we're trying to get them to a K3, we put the harness on them, we take away the assistive devices, and now it's almost like riding a bike for them. They know they're not going to fall. They have their training wheels on, they're using the assistive device, they're using their body to move, and now it clicks. And we've been able to quantify so much quicker the need for the K3 device that's only going to further them out in the community as well. So it's been a great transition. We're now in it for 2 years now, and I think we're finally just really hitting our stride now, especially the referral sources knowing about it with therapists, but patients as well. People are calling us we're located in the Coachella Valley. I get phone calls from Arizona. I get phone calls from LA with people who heard about what we're doing here. So it's really cool. It's exciting.
Wow, that is awesome. Most people are concerned when they're trying to switch to a new platform, new technology, implement something new into their practice. It's always scary, especially something that you rely so heavily on with the day-to-day. You got patient information, you got your AR, you got basically your whole business is operating through this system. When you're looking to transition one to the other, there are some like serious considerations when you're going through this big undertaking. What were some of the things that you were maybe worried about?
Yeah, let's put it this way. It's like, we weren't looking for a new software. Sure, it fell in our laps. It was a great program. We were looking for a way to advance our level of care, to spend more time with our patients, to make things more efficient. We were looking at it from a patient care standpoint, and lo and behold, knocked on our door enough times that we finally said, we'll take a look. We were happy in the way things were. We weren't really adept to what the possibilities were. We were saying, hey, we're doing it this way, we're okay. We've got a lot of stuff going on right now building this new facility, and we'll get back to you guys. And finally, once we had a lull and the facility's built, let's throw something else at the wall. And that was Nymbl. Once we got on the level with them to where we were actually open to the idea, it brought on a lot of, oh wow, this can help us, right? But there's that daunting task of switching. I remember what it was like to go from changing behaviors, changing the way things are done. Nobody wants to do that, which is why we did our best to, it was the beginning of 25, and we knew we were gonna jump in with them, and we held a end of the year kind of educational seminar with our staff. I have got 4 locations. We brought everybody here to our central location in La Quinta. We did heavy education on compliance, heavy education on what fabricators we're using, how we write our work orders, how we note, how we code, how we justify. We did everything from front to back. We did all the ADP stuff, and we ended our last day with a 4-hour conversation of Nymbl got their people. They jumped on, we have a big 80-inch screen right when you walk in. We had everybody in our lobby. They jump on our screen, and they basically showed our staff what the future would look like with Nymbl. And that was the buy-in moment for everybody. They walked us through administratively, practitioner, to billing, to purchase and inventory, and immediately, and again, the majority of my staff is younger than me. And so they saw this as, it was that new feeling. It was that fresh feeling. So that we were initially able to get buy-in. And so once we had the buy-in, then we're like, okay, as owners, we've got to follow through. And so looking at it, banging our heads together, we're just like, okay, let's start small. Let's start with our smaller facility, one of our satellites. Let's have them implement it. Very adept staff. They knew what they were doing. They've done very well year over year. And so we said, you guys take it on a lower level, report back to us, and let's see how it's done. The worst decision I probably made, because once we saw how they were doing it, and once we saw their efficiencies, we're like, why don't we all just jump on? And that's exactly what we did. It was no more, I think they started in June. We planned to start in September, and by July 1st, we're like, no, we're dumping everything in. We were scared about the crossover factor, that depleting AR from a different software, trying to bring numbers down, close out those books, open on a new. And we're like, okay, we're gonna keep everything in the old software, all the new prescriptions that we opened, we're gonna keep all that one on the old software. Anything new, we're gonna put it on the new software. And we started doing that. Within a week, we're like, no, let's transfer all these prescriptions. If they haven't been billed yet, let's transfer them to the new software. So now all we're depleting is AR. So we're only working in that software as if we're tying up loose ends. Everything that was in progress or anything new now is in Nymbl. And I gotta take my hat off to the trainers. I gotta take my hat off to the implementation staff. There was no sense of I'm alone in this. It was really felt like anytime myself or any one of my staff had a question, the account manager, the account success manager, all the way up to the sales staff, they would jump on a phone call right then. I know Josh Black over there at Nymbl, fantastic. He really helped us understand it. And even today, we're learning new things about the software, but the implementation, it turned out to be smooth. And it was, if I could tell anybody, if you're going to do it, jump all the way in.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Oh gosh. Yeah. And like I said, it could be daunting, but we were very fortunate being fully on. I know some people are even still coming off like Medflex, and they're still so far behind. So again, we understood the processes. We all understand how to get a claim paid at the back end. So it was just changing the way you work, right? And so, yes, you can be scared going into things, but when you get in things, and if you have a competent staff, good management, things tend to be a little bit easier than you drum them up in your head. So, and I like I said, I take my hat off to Nymbl, the support staff, but my staff as well. They were really good at taking their departments, compartmentalizing. Me as an owner, I have to think about everything. But them, they think about administrative. practitioner, compliance, billing, posting. So I'm thinking about the whole thing where they're just focused on what they do every day. And by doing such, giving it off to them, they were able to see efficiencies rise very quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something that I talk to our members a lot about is when they're choosing vendors, or we tend to analyze products and cost and functionality, all those things that you got to check those boxes. But I like to look at things more holistically and say when you're entering into a relationship with somebody, it's much more than just the actual physical product. We're talking about a partnership. We're talking about the people that you enter in with, the companies that you choose to business. They're just important. Are they vested in your success, or are they just trying to sell you a widget? You got to be selective about those. And it sounds like that was something that you really took into account when you were entering into this.
Yeah, I like to make informed decisions. There's some things that are just thrown at you that you got to act now. You got to just go. But for an organizational change, it's like there does have to be a process to it. It does have to be planned and mapped out. It's not something that's going to happen today and then it's there tomorrow. And so it really gave me a lot of things happen in this world that just require me to jump, and you have to jump. This was something that we took our time, we planned it out, we mapped it out, and what we didn't realize is by the time the implementation became involved, how prepared we really were, right? And you're just, oh, I'm ready for this, let's go. And so that's why we implemented it so much faster. We went 2 months before our planned implementation, but because we were ready. So the proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Yeah. So when you get down into the nuts and bolts of it, though, is there anything in particular, like any sort of feature, anything like stood out to you as like a separator, a different differentiator, something that really made it like this is a no-brainer for us because of this particular thing?
Yeah, and I think with talking to our staff, the touch and the feel of it, the feeling of up-to-date, of new, that was huge for our staff. Finding all the places in really close areas, not having to jump through different areas to get to places. Everything felt very compact. It felt purposeful, and that's on the front end. They currently have integrations with companies that do referral intake, so that was huge. We're talking middle of 25 before people were really in tune with AI. They had AI intake at a very early phase, so order comes in, it reads all the data, you can push that in and open a new chart in Nymbl. We've never seen that. People would come in, they get the referral, they're typing every single box just to get all the information in. That improved efficiency. I went from 4 people doing intake to 2 people. And again, it's not about getting rid of people. It's about reallocating them for skills that they're good at. And that's what we did. I know AI is coming, and we don't look at it as getting rid of people. We look at it as reallocating people and growing, but not having to grow our staff. So everybody still from the inception is still with us today. Find a large part of efficiencies that are there, and that was at the beginning. Now even such, if I could speak to it, it's only getting better. They have back-end API access, read-only right now. We can utilize some of our marketing softwares. We use Monday for some data, for some marketing that we've used in the past. So it allows us to take that data, get it into our other software, so that way we're not pulling. We use Hike Medical for diabetic shoes and inserts. They have read-only access for them. So when I go into their software, it's as simple as importing a patient from Nymbl right into their software. All their stuff's right there. And more's on the way, right? More's coming. We're looking forward to scheduling integrations. We used Ring Central before. We use their AI phone feature. So people will call us, they get an AI agent. At the beginning, it was 70% buy-in. We're at 96% buy-in now. So people are actually taking these calls, getting to the right department. So now the next level of that is someone calls you to get scheduled for an appointment that's available in a calendar. That's on our horizon. So documentation, all that stuff. There's a lot of capabilities.
I'm unsurprised to hear you mention Amit and company out at Hike. Yeah, they're very forward thinking. He's always delivering his agentic AI talks. He just saw him last week at FAOP, and they're very much so embracing that.
Yeah, I had his son. I'm good friends with Amit. I had his son Adi out here on Monday, going through some of the new capabilities of Hike from the documentation side, and being able to integrate the two companies together from Nymbl to Hike, it's pretty cool. And like I said, it's still at its infancy. In the next few months, we'll kind of see where it goes, but having that capability with our EMR and a company that is looking for ways in which we can advance in this new age of technology it's really cool. And like I said, it's in its infancy, so we take every opportunity, we take every call, we're looking at everything, we're reading articles based on it, because again, like I said, if we can improve our technologies, we ultimately increase our time with our patients. And that's what it boils down to us is, yeah, it's one thing to be fast, it's one thing to be compliant, but if I book a patient for a BK or an AK, they might get an hour, right? But an hour before, 30 minutes to 40 minutes of that time was dedicated to documentation. Now it's like, if I could spend 40 minutes with the patient, 20 minutes for documentation, the patient's winning, we're winning. So it's been a big help.
Yeah, the modern feel for a modern generation. Me and you are close in age. You're right at you're about ready to transition into the 40s there.
This year, maybe.
And I just got there. I grew up in that sweet zone where it's like, I remember not a ton of technology, but then I'm comfortable with it. And I'm like, I consider myself an early adopter, and I like to jump in, and I like tech and using it. But the next generation, they're like, when watching my kids use an iPhone, they're like wizards.
Right.
And the next generation, this is just normal for them, and they expect a certain level of a beautiful user interface, and they want things to be efficient, and they move so quick. They have low patience with systems that are clunky. Yeah, give it to me. Like, why is it this way? And if you're going to move into that, you need a system that's going to reflect that next generation, and they're coming quicker. We were talking about residents earlier, and they appreciate that UI that is more reflective of what they come to expect from just modern tech today.
Yeah, and I know, obviously, being around for 3 generations, I've seen the evolution of care. I've seen the evolution of technology, and it's what drove my dad out of practice, to be all honest. It's like, my dad he never had to use a computer, and he didn't want to. Right? But then there came the factor of, you got to be compliant. If you keep compliance and you're putting us at risk, I just want big legs. I just want to be in the back. And I'm like, that's
understandable.
Cool, but yeah, 100%. And he was very fortunate because he had a son that was of age that was ready to take over. It really worked well. He's on a beach in Portugal right now. He's doing just fine. But it's the truth. But yes, it's watching it. And again, for anybody out there, like, I remember those meetings back in like 2013, and people are complaining about the documentation and the new way of doing things. And it's like, we don't have time to complain. You have to just do what's expected of us. And if it's implementing technology, if it's typing your notes, whatever it is, it's like, there's a way to get paid. And if you don't do it the right way, you put yourself at risk, and ultimately we've seen what happens after that.
Is there anything new coming out the pike that you have maybe are privy to with Nymbl that they might, because we got AOPA coming up? Have you heard of any rumblings, anything that you're excited about that they're going to embrace?
I hope, my hope is that I know they've got a new purchasing and inventory. I think they've spent a lot of time on that. They've got a interface with messaging where we can direct message our patients. I know there's some companies out there that do it that we can integrate with, but they'll have their own software to do it. I know they've really advanced their AI notes. Hopefully by AOPA just after. My biggest ask every time I go to Josh, or every time I'm talking to Katie or anybody else over there, it's, when are we going to get right access for APIs, right? That's one thing to pull the information out for AI to be able to read it, but when are we going to be able to communicate? And that would allow outside there's plenty of companies that already do it, like the scheduling integration that I told you about. There's companies that do it, but they require write access, and these are HIPAA compliant approved companies that are all ready to do it. And so when they release the write access, we can access even further tools. And so I know it's coming. They always say, hey, hold on, it'll be there, but there's a lot of new features that, and that's one. And also too, documentation. I utilize it in my office. We've got BAAs at certain companies that we have, and we basically are able to, HIPAA compliant, be able to use some of the PHI in order to find out if the information that we're delivering to the insurance is fully compliant or not. And I have countless number of staffs that's back and forth with doctors just trying to get a signature. I think that's one thing that's exciting that's coming out with Hike is their capabilities of doing that for diabetic shoes and inserts. The AI that basically put in a prescription, you put all the documentation in there, it reads it, it says what it needs, and then it reaches back out to the doctor on the AI side, asking for a signature or giving them the requirements. I cut diabetic shoes and inserts out at the beginning of this year because 5% of revenue, it was taking up 70% of my workload's time for as far as documentation was concerned. They've got something really exciting on the back end there that's been proven. We're currently in a pilot with them, but hopefully that if we have right access, then it'll be able to access on Nymbl, but I think that's coming soon. So all exciting stuff. As it relates to AI, the opportunities are somewhat endless, but
and no one has a crystal ball. They've certainly set the bar high for themselves in a way that technology, the pace at which technology moves and is even accelerated now, we see with AI, exponential, and then they've named their company Nymbl, right? So they've really set the bar to, okay, we got to live up to the expectations and the reality of the way tech moves. And I think for the most part, they've, as difficult as it is, delivered on that and stayed true to kind of who they are. And I'm excited to see what's come. I know that they've ripped some things down and rebuilt. Lau, it's just in his nature to be on the front wave of things.
I think one of my favorite things is at NymblCon, and before I really met Lau, was I'm sitting there and this guy's in a Nymbl shirt and you can't really tell him from another person, and he's in the bar and a lot of commotion's going on and he's just sitting there coding. I'm like, what is this guy doing? They're like, oh yeah, that's a CEO. I'm like, what? Have a drink, buddy.
You pretty much nailed it with that one. I've got one more question I want to ask you, and I think we can wrap it up. I think we've kind of touched everything that we wanted to touch. I appreciate you said earlier, this is your perspective. We're obviously partnered with Nymbl. OPGA supports them. We believe in them, but you're pretty clear that this were your own views and you wouldn't say anything that weren't going to sugarcoat anything or say anything that wasn't true. So I appreciate just you being candid. The last question I want to ask you is, as I talk to folks, switching is so hard, like making a switch, and I totally get that. And it doesn't come without its bumps, without its headaches, without its effort on the end of the user and the folks that you're partnering with. A big thing that I've heard is things would either have to be really bad and then also have to be very good for me to go through the effort of making that change. What could you say to somebody that might be in that stance or in that position?
Yeah, I think obviously from a business owner perspective, it's a little bit different. You can speak on behalf of a clinician, you can speak on behalf of a biller, an admin, but from a business owner, the level of data in which we get to be able to forecast, to be able to really see at a click's notice. I can log into my dashboard every morning. It uploads the data from yesterday. It shows me the billables that were processed yesterday. It shows me the time frame in which I typically get paid per each payer and overall. So if I billed that yesterday, I know I'm probably 90% going to get those funds within 30 days. Having that level of transparency at a dashboard at a click's notice, it helps me become a better business owner. It helps me make decisions. It's something I didn't have with our previous software. It was like really trying to read through the lines in order to get that, or being able to export that into pie charts and tables and stuff like that. They've been able to take the data that you put in every day and make it readable. That's huge for me. I'm opening a new facility in Palm Springs. We're moving out of our old one, and it's like, knowing I can take a lump sum of money and knowing that I've got more money coming in the pipe, like just being able to make those decisions, being able to hire residents at a moment's notice because we know, hey, it's a busy time based on what my prescription level's at. From a business owner's perspective, as far as things being good or bad, if I had hindsight, it's like I would have never seen all that. I think just knowing that now, it would have made the switch a lot easier, because ultimately your data is important and they've given you a landing page for that. So it's called the dashboard. So the dashboard works well for us.
That's great. Russ, I appreciate you taking the time. I certainly appreciate your membership with OPGA. Take the time out of your day. I know that you guys are busy. Thanks for all your thoughts, your insights.
Thank you for everything you do over at OPGA and back at VGM. You're making a real difference out there too, so appreciate you.
Thanks for saying that, Russ. We'll be in touch. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.